You are listening to Know You're Crazy. My name is Susan Denee. We all have crazy. What separates us is how we choose to deal with it. I'm going to be delivering engaging and actionable tools to own your crazy, treat your crazy, and turn it into your own superpower. I hope that you walk away from this show feeling the power and strength within you. And never forget to enjoy your journey because you are worth it. Your Crazy Show. My name is Susan Denee, and you are listening to Emotional Recovery in the Raw. For those of you joining me for maybe the first time, I like to talk about the different emotional hurdles that we have and some different tools, techniques that we can use in order to overcome them. I deal with anything from relationships. I've done a ton of content on relationships, to financial, to professional, which brings me to today. So today's show title is The Side Hustle of the Midlife Crisis. Now, I don't know if I'm in the midlife crisis. It feels like that. I should have Googled what's the average age for midlife crisis. Maybe I'll do that when I go to break today. I don't know. But I will tell you, when this transition of who are you later on in life, and maybe some of you don't even experience that, but personally walking through it and then now having that aha moment of what other people have faced, maybe traditionally, if you're coming from my generation or older, I'm Generation X, you might, the word retirement, what that might be like to retire. You know, who am I at this new phase of my development? Understanding that adopting certain identities for many years and establishing beliefs over those years as far as why you do what you do and when you do it, having that shift on you, understanding that as you age and as you discover new things that you enjoy or not enjoy anymore, it can be a very confusing time. So I'm just going to start out the show, and that's the topic today. That's the reason for the show and the topic. I'll give you a little bit of my storytelling around that, about my own personal experience. But primarily, I'm going to be talking about different side hustles with the midlife crisis, what that means, especially around mindset, and also about income generating opportunities, which a nice talk with a friend just yesterday spurred this show. So here we go. So do you recall the younger years? When you were 17 or 18 years old and wondering what you wanted to do with the rest of your life. Perhaps you were full of magnificent clarity and knew exactly what you would do, and then maybe went to school for it and even found a career in that line of work. Or maybe you were like me and the thought overwhelmed you, and there was always this lurking feeling that there were plenty of things to do, but you just didn't know about them. I mean, how do people find those things out? At least back then. See, today we all know the answer to that. But back then, you know, I think you kind of had to have been blessed with the right questions to ask, or somebody had mentored you, perhaps parents or other generations, and you kind of knew what you wanted to do. At least for me, that's what it felt like. But now, as you've gotten maybe a few years behind you, you got some few skill sets already developed, it might feel impossible to change your course of life. You know, how do I navigate a new way of being, a new way of perhaps getting paid for a living, or maybe a new way in relationships at this particular phase of my life journey? That might feel impossible. You have years of stacked beliefs about how far along you should have been by now. Maybe that's your experience. And now to think of changing it up is scary. To admit that your course of life up to this point no longer satisfies you can feel intimidating. It can feel hopeless. What now? Well, the good news is today I'm going to be diving into some possibilities for you on how to not only make money as a side hustle in these later years, but how you practice a healthy mindset and learn to adapt to this phase of your life. I just had to throw this in there when I was thinking about doing this show, for the ladies out there who have as we're engaging in these latter years, when we were in our 20s and 30s, I don't think we were really paying attention to that word menopause or what that really meant for us. It was like, yeah, it doesn't apply to me, right? Yeah, well, when you hit that, at least for me, at least for this menopausal woman, oh my goodness, it's a wake up call. So for that in itself can start to navigate a little bit different of beliefs. What you're physically capable of may feel not as good as it did even 5 years ago. So there's a adapting and adopting of a new way of being that can feel overwhelming and scary. And for you men out there, I'm not going to leave you out. Andropause. I think that's how you pronounce it. Andropause. Perhaps those testosterone levels have taken a dive and you're wondering why your performance, and I'm not just talking about the bedroom, but your performance overall feels less than satisfactory. You start to feel a little bit less energetic. Look, the body's changing, folks. And when that body starts changing, you can't help but notice it sometimes. And that absolutely impacts the mental clarity and the mental stamina that we bring to the game later in years. So, how do you create a successful side hustle in the second half of your life? That's the question. Maybe you don't want to. Mm-hmm. I'm on the phone yesterday with a friend. We were talking last week. I had a little bit of a hiccup in my emotional recovery. I think we're all kind of emotionally recovering at all times. I'm not meaning to stay in a status of continuous fix it. But what I am aware of is that sometimes I don't feel as good as I'd like to feel. Have you ever had one of those weeks where you just want to crawl inside? You don't want to talk to anybody. You want to crawl into bed, pull the covers over your head and not say anything? Yeah, it was kind of one of those weeks. I mean, I didn't quite crawl into the bed. I didn't need to crawl into the bed to that level, but I was very well aware that some of my choices I had culpability in, and I did not want to take on that culpability. And all of it has been surrounded around this midlife awakening, career change, all these things. And so that can feel really big at times. And that's why I chose to do the show today. So let's talk about the definition of a side hustle, because I'm going to segue right into, what do I do now? What do I do now? Maybe you're somebody out there who is looking to change it up. Perhaps the people in my life, I have several women in my life right now that are at this crossroads of their journey where there's a practice of acceptance. This is where I'm at. There's no need to fight it, but it doesn't really feel good. When's this going to stop? Why don't I feel like the way I used to? I don't really like doing what I've been doing for 10, 15, 20 years. I'd like to branch out, but then they feel sometimes stuck. Maybe the finances aren't where they were, or the finances are just fine, but the beliefs about what they should or shouldn't do with that and the concern and the worry about investments for their future interrupts a change. So there's lots of things that can go on. So I'm talking about the side hustle. So what is the definition of a side hustle? A side hustle, how I Googled it anyway, says that work performed for income supplementary to one's primary job. So what is the side hustle versus the 9 to 5? I, for 25 years, worked in a traditional 9 to 5 job. Actually, it was probably more like 8 to 6. But traditional, 25 years I did that. Got up, had the commute, made sure, dinner was cooked for the kids, made all the arrangements, kids to and from daycare, went into the office, punched the clock, dove right in. Leadership, accomplishment, everything in the corporate world that it would offer me. And then that stopped working for my personal satisfaction. It just stopped working. And it wasn't just the company that I was at that stopped working, but internally I knew that I wanted to do something different. But then faced at that crossroads, how do you take that on when you've been influenced for 20, 25, maybe 15 years of one type of lifestyle? It will take a lot of courage to step out and say, I want to do something different, because a lot of us get bound to the fear of, what if this doesn't work? Or we are bound to the fear of, what is this choice going to do to others in my life? How are they going to be impacted by it? Many of us, instead of have over the years have learned or have practiced more than learned, but we have practiced the idea that if I make these decisions, how is it going to impact everybody else? Or even worse, what's everybody going to think about me? So we withhold ourselves from making life-altering decisions. And isn't it true that like you've got these categories in your life in which you make decisions? It's one of the reasons why I always talk when I'm sharing the show, these emotional recovery departments of life can be our finances, it can be our professional life, it can be our relationships life, and it can be our health life. Like those are the four main categories that we have these massive, decisive moments that we're either going to go in one direction or another. And a lot of time, I'd probably say all those thoughts that we think every day are going to be consumed in one of these categories. Okay, I'm going to be leaning a little bit into the financial and the professional category today, simply to make my point about the midlife side hustle. The midlife side hustle has two parts to it. One is going to be the mental game of it, and two is going to be the financial game of it, / purpose, passion, professional, right? All right, so that's where we're at today. So the side hustle, the opportunity today. So this was the difference. This is what I was kind of insinuating earlier when I opened the show. The beliefs in the beginning, at least when I was at that younger age, what do I want to be when I grow up? There wasn't quite as much access to having ideas flow or understanding. Like you'd have at least for me, it was like there were big categories I could pick from. But today, as we discover with, God, this makes me sound kind of old here, but I am talking about midlife crisis with the internet and the online access, we can literally research many things to do with our life. We can research and bring in many opportunities of income that just doesn't have to be the traditional 9 to 5. And that's why I wanted to do this show today, because I have been at a crossroads between the old self, and maybe you have too, and this new self breaking in, and slowly but surely releasing resistance over time. Because isn't it true when you go to change and you go to make a new direction in your life, that the fear / resistance can withhold you? So instead of totally stepping out in faith and having trust in the universe that everything's going to be okay and listening to that confident self, we kind of like put the little Bigfoot in the, little toe in the water and say, maybe, but I don't know, I'm going to pull it back. Maybe. And then we're haunted with the idea that we want to put the whole foot in, but we don't. We keep putting one little toe at a time, one little pinky toe in the water. God, I hope I remember what I was just talking about. Okay, so we have to understand, at least for me today, that there are so many opportunities and we have such easy access to those opportunities for revenue generating side hustles that it's quite impressive, actually. And I'm going to be going through a lot of those opportunities as I continue the show today. Asking yourself today, maybe it's not so much of what I want to be, but maybe it's how many other avenues of revenue can I bring in to my life in order to create a satisfactory fulfillment of fun, maybe for the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life. Maybe this midlife decision making, maybe it's not going to look the way I want it to look. For me, gone are kind of the days of, hey, I've got my retirement account. Yes, I've got one. But it's not just that anymore. It's about what are these new avenues of experience that I can create for myself, and how is this going to look for me? If you are an entrepreneur, then this world for you is probably somewhat familiar of what I'm talking about, because the mindset of an entrepreneur, sometimes it feels like entrepreneur with ADD, all over the place. Oh, I could sprinkle some time over here, or oh, I could do this. And there's a constant grabbing of new things to do and new ways to express. And how do we keep the passion in there? The difference between side hustles and going to the 9 to 5 job, and other differences, the side hustles are going to be all up to you and how you want to do it and when you want to do it. There is no structure per se that's going to be placed upon you. The side hustle is going to be up to you to make happen. So I hope that you enjoy whatever you may choose to do as a side hustle for you. The other thing that you have to become comfortable with is the way in which money will be received on side hustles is completely different than the 9 to 5 and the dependent paycheck. And even if you've been in business for yourself for a while and it's just, it's the same thing every other day and you're used to that consistency. When you get into the side hustle world, you might be putting some stuff in certain categories and you're not seeing the payment come in quite like you would, or you're getting paid in different ways and your taxes are being calculated in different ways that just doesn't make sense to you anymore. And so there's another adaptation of that entrepreneur slash side hustle perspective that you have to adopt. And that's, how do I receive my funds and how do I get paid? And then once kind of bouncing again off that structure, in your side hustles, it's just you. So you are the business owner. So now what? There's really nobody to point the finger at unless you want to get upset at your vendors or you want to get upset at maybe somebody who you've hired to do something. And it can feel big and it can feel overwhelming and it can feel, here's the main thing that it can really feel like. How many of you ever suffer from not enough fast enough? Not enough fast enough. I'm going to borrow my own stuff from the world of recovery. And when I talk about recovery on this show, I'm talking about recovery from alcoholism and addiction. But, when somebody first gets sober, they wake up to like what we call in that world wreckage. Like you wake up and you're like, oh my God, look at all this cleanup. You suddenly your eyes are open and you see how many people you damaged, and you see for many how the finances are just erratic, and you have to face the creditors and the bill collectors, and you wake up to maybe health challenges, and suddenly people wonder why it's so hard for other people to get sober, because they're waking up to a big nightmare. And in the middle of that, how are they going to emotionally adapt to that for the first time perhaps ever that they're taking it on? And so it can feel like I can't get there fast enough. It's not enough fast enough. I can't fix this wreckage fast enough. And so what we learn in recovery is we have to sit through the shit. We have to sit through it. We have to sit through the healing. I was just talking to a woman today who celebrated 1 year this month, and she is like on pink cloud, loving life. And she said, oh my God, this first year was hell. And I said, it's only hell because you chose to get through it. And when we choose to get through something, we have to hang on. And when we are in midlife situations, midlife grow up phases, right? Where we're not the old self, but we're not the new self yet. And we're trying to make new decisions. Hang on, because it's going to get uncomfortable. Hang on. If for the first time you're looking at retirement, or you're looking at changing what you do, or you're realizing you've been a self-employed individual and the same old ain't working no more because the body doesn't work like that no more. Just hang on, because the development in the midlife and the side hustles that we go through emotionally and tangibly, they are something else. And it can feel like not enough fast enough. How do I get the income revenue generating on my business? And when I look at it, I've got this to figure out, and I've got a website to figure out, and I have to figure out how to take payments, and are there fees on those payments? And this isn't even talking about the taxes to be filed. Do you hear me? And so not enough fast enough can stop a lot of us from moving forward. And I'm just here to tell you, hang on. This will be temporary if you stay willing to do the work. And if you've been watching this show for a while, you already know what I'm going to say. I'm never going to let you off the hook from the work. I'm always going to lean on you and let you know that you are the common denominator that's going to make these changes in your life. Nobody's going to do it for you. And the challenge with that as we get older is sometimes our energy isn't like it was when we were 17 or 18. We don't want to. And we're carrying this baggage of beliefs with us. This baggage of beliefs that told us it was supposed to be one way or another. And now we're uprooting that, a lot of us, and figuring out that either we never really grasped this phase of our life. We never really learned about it. And so now here we are. And so now what? Here we are. And so now what? How do you want to live the next 20, 30, 40, and I'm even going to say 50 years of your life, depending on however old you are now? What do you really feel in your gut is your life expectancy? Just ask yourself that question, and I'm going to encourage you, try to be a little optimistic about that. Don't get too scared. but what is your life expectancy for you? And how do you want to live those next 20, 30, 40 years of life? And if you don't want to be stuck to the same routine, then hang on, because that's what this show is about today. So we get over the emotional mindset. You start to develop tools in which you can overcome the fear of being stuck or the fear of not enough fast enough. The mental stamina that it's going to take to face the hurdles of this isn't as easy as I thought. There's something to be said when we're young and dumb and kind of just out of sacrifice. We need to go get the job. At least that was my experience. We're kind of full of what my dad would say is piss and vinegar. We're going to go out and just do it. And we're not really looking at the blinders. We're not held back by a bunch of stale beliefs, right? We're not held back. We're just diving in. We're just going to make it happen. There's something to be said for not having to think about it. And I'm going to go on a soapbox moment for just a second here. I feel somewhat sad for the new generations, especially the 16-year-old and younger. I just from raising my own children, because there's so much information out there online that it's like a whole head full of overwhelm and too much knowledge that I'm afraid that some of them are going to crash before they really learn what true grit is and understanding how to overcome some of those emotional and mental battles, because many of us weren't influenced on that level. We didn't have to be fed constantly or have to face that comparison game. And I will tell you, in the midlife shift that you're going to be experiencing or you are experiencing, you too are going to be held in experiencing the comparison game online and the social media game. People talk about that and they sometimes try to make it light, but it's a real deal for many, many people, comparing yourself to what others have and not being able to truly revel in your own accomplishment because you're always feeling less than somebody you see online. Maybe that's your experience. So the mental game with the midlife crisis is also learning how to protect your peace and how to put up those blocks for you and those boundaries so that you don't go down a rabbit hole of confusion and discouragement because of the influence online and because of everything that you're staring at. All right. So, having said all of that, coming back to side hustle, coming back to, well, what do I do then? What am I going to do on this next journey? If I don't want to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years at a 9-to-5 job, what do I do? Well, let's start talking about what are some different ways that you get to make some money. Now, I will tell you, when you start to consider becoming a side hustler, you're just looking for new avenues of income, multiple avenues of income to come into your household, multiple ways to make money that's not the same old, same old. Maybe it's to make a multiple avenue of income so that you can just, maybe buy a few more things that you want. Maybe you have some vacations you want to make. Maybe there's something like that. My most recent adventures, I want to pay for some hot yoga. My husband's laughing. He's probably chuckling right now. And so I've got some goals right now that I need to write down so I can get into some hot yoga. Has anybody looked at the price of hot yoga lately? Oh my God, I might as well take out a second mortgage on my house. It's like, it's stupid. I guess it's worth it if you're the hot yoga teacher or the studio owner or the real estate owner, which is I'm going to talk about. Okay, so what are some things that you can do if you want to start working on becoming a side hustler and you want to look for new avenues of income to come into your household? All right, number one question for you. What have you been doing your whole life? Like literally, what is your skill set in? What have you been doing? And the next question is, can you get paid for it? Okay, where am I going with this? I was in debt collection 25 years, talked it over the phone. Don't hate me if bill collectors have called you. All right. If it's helpful, I created the compassionate phone skill set after the 2008 financial crisis crash. And so I do understand the compassion for phone conversations. And I actually trained that for the National Collection Agency, the ACA, at an industry event. So doing my part here. But talked it over the phone, trained it, marketed it, all the above. What kind of skill sets are developed with that? Communication skill sets are developed. Presentation skill sets are developed. Negotiating skill sets are developed. There's a list of things. It doesn't mean that I have to go back into the collection world, but what it does mean is I can isolate all those skill sets and then make a decision. Would I like to do a webinar on negotiation? Would I like to do a webinar on professional conversations, professional negotiation? Maybe I want to do a webinar just on communication. And where would I put this webinar? Maybe I could put this webinar on LinkedIn. Maybe I could advertise it there. Maybe I could charge a couple bucks in order for people to attend that. There's a side hustle for you. And so when you look at your experience, let's say that you're somebody who's been doing construction your whole life. Maybe it was your own business. What type of skill sets would you have in that arena that you could teach other people about? I often give my husband a hard time because he loves his work and he's been doing it for many years. But when we talk about when he goes to transition from that line of work, the guy's a mechanic, a motorcycle car mechanic. It's like his flow. I'm like, you could easily put videos together and put that stuff out there because so many people are wanting to learn how to work on engines and how to do that. But could there be a class on that? That's what I'm talking about. If you're somebody who's been in construction for a while, running your own business, what type of skill sets have you had to develop over those years in order to make that business successful? The fact that it has sustained you. I have a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who's a stylist. She does fantastic work, fantastic work. How many skill sets could be taught in that arena just as a little side hustle? Doesn't have to be full time. Doesn't like you have to, go there all the time and do it on video every day. But what if you just tossed out something on the side and charged a few bucks? These are the type of side hustles that are possible for us today that definitely were not on the arena, at least when I was 17 or 18-year-old. And God bless those young ones out there because this is stuff you guys could do and probably get educated in some different areas and find your own way of making some side money. All right, so we're a half hour into the show already. I'm going to take a break. And when I come back, I'm going to be talking about once you start kind of getting in there and saying, okay, what could I get paid for? What are these skill sets? These ones that I haven't even thought about. I'm going to move into some different things that will help you in developing some ideas. And then I'm going to go through a list of things that people do. I did a little bit of research online because this world for me started back in 2016. I've done a ton of stuff and understanding and workshops and diving out there for side hustle stuff over the years. And so I'm bringing a lot of that to you and what I've researched over this entire time, what I have found that makes the most sense, and some things that are just like, really would have never thought of that. And that was some of the recent research I did for how can you generate an income of side hustle to satisfy your life even more for the next 20, 30 years. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to go to break. And when I come back, I will be getting detailed about some of those things that you can do. Be back shortly. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Know You're Crazy show. My name is Susan Denee, and you are listening to Emotional Recovery in the Raw. Today's topic, I'm talking about the side hustle of the midlife crisis. What do? We find ourselves in a new age, a new way of doing things. We don't necessarily relate to the old self, yet we kind of get a little confused on what the new self is. I'm focusing not only on the mental game of the midlife crisis and the side hustle alone with that, spotting the crazy, how it shows up for us, dealing with some of the items that I talked about in the first half, but also the income generating side hustles that you can do for yourself as you engage in these next 10, 20, 30 years. There's so many different opportunities today that exist for us, primarily because of the influence of online and different avenues we can choose to go down. But many of us coming from the past generations, shall I say, aren't exactly always adept at understanding, well, what is out there for me to do and how easy can I do it? And sometimes with the midlife stuff, we're not as motivated as we were before. And maybe we don't want to work that hard. So what are some simplistic things that we can do to bring in a little bit of cash on the side to feel fulfilled and yet not completely abandon ourselves in a whole new way? And when I ended before we went to break, I was talking about, so how do you begin to ask yourself, well, what could I do? What are some ideas? And I told you to ask yourself, what have I been doing my whole life? What skill sets have I developed? I gave my examples. I did customer service for many years. I did debt collection for many years. I did negotiating for many years, presentations, PowerPoints, all of the above, did all of that. Are there skill sets within that I could probably make money at? Likely. And what about you? What did you do for the first half of your life? What type of skills do you have? What kind of things did you develop over those years? And is there any of that you might be able to teach online? Are there little PDFs that you can sell? And so these are some of the things that I'm going to be going into in this second half. But before I dive into the tangible things that you can do for a nice side hustle gig that'll be easy and not like taking on an entire new career, first off is just always to remember to stay in your lane. And what I mean by that is when we start really looking at the next 10, 20, 30 years and what you want to do, stay in your lane because it can get overwhelming. The example I used on the first half of the show was not enough fast enough. We want it to be just enough, just at the right time. And practicing that acceptance of what right here, right now, everything's okay, and just kind of slowly chipping away at it and enjoying it. I alluded earlier on the first half of the show that I talked to a good friend yesterday. And what inspired this show was I've been personally really struggling with how to make something too big or not big enough. And when you get into the self-development world, a lot of the coaches and things like this already understand this. But this is what you get when you get a recovered alcoholic doing a podcast. I kind of tell it like it is. This is kind of what I'm known for in my community. So I'm just going to tell it like it is. When you get into the personal development world, you got so many avenues. It's like a spider web. Oh, I could write a book. And then you find out that you have to have 30,000 followers for a publisher, even to consider you, to even tap dance with you. And so then you think, well, I could self-publish. But now you need to figure out how to self-publish. And guess what? Where are you going to market that at? And if you don't understand your marketing plan and you don't have all those followers, well, good luck on your self-published selling anything. You might sell it to a couple friends, but how do you get out there without a publisher? And then you start realizing, well, with the publisher, they're going to get some money down, but it's not like you think, right? So you have to have a name out there, and it can get kind of big. That's just one avenue of the self-development world. Then you think about online courses and coaching, and oh, that sounds like fun. And then you're back to the website, and how do these people pay, and who's going to help me manage my social media? And maybe I don't want to manage my social media because I don't like seeing myself on camera every day, 20 times a day. Okay, there's all these things that you start to have to face. You start to face these things, and even when you think you're really good, there's so many different avenues to get paid, and there's so much competition out there that it can really cause you to shut down sometimes. And so when I'm advocating stay in your lane, what I'm trying to advocate for you is understand that when you start chipping this off and you start really looking into some of these ideas, that there's thousands of people doing it. And if the comparison game kicks in, it'll absolutely, it could absolutely be diminishing. And I'm biased with that a little bit. That's a little bit of my experience in there. But why it was so rewarding when I was talking to my friend yesterday, when I was kind of telling her what I've been up to, and I'll be sharing some of these things and these ideas with you, that she was like, oh, what if that's just what you do? You just kind of have a multiple side hustle gig. And I was like, yeah, what if that is what I do? Instead of worrying about, this big career shift that I'm supposed to have, or maybe I just become content with, some side hustling. So that got me into, and it's something about the word hustle. I like hustling. I don't know. Maybe it's the alcoholic in me, the side hustle. I don't know. Anyway, so that got me thinking, well, this would be a really good show idea for folks, even if you're not in midlife, but you're just looking, how can I develop some new income revenue generating, right? It's different lines of revenue, passive income. Two different definitions of passive income. One is just income on the side that's not generated from your normal 9 to 5. And then I think of passive income from a real estate investor point of view. Rental income is passive income, tax-free. Anyways, whole other show. But I just want to point that out there because that stands out to me when I use those words. The other thing with the side hustle, once you start diving in, be prepared for what I call side hustle ADD. ADHD, not taking light anybody with AD or ADHD. I live with a whole household of it. But literally saying the squirrel thing, like, oh, this looks shiny, like to do that. Oh, this looks shiny, like to do that. Oh, what if I do that? And really sticking to something and writing it all the way out, depending on which one you want to do, can be a little bit of a challenge. All right, so here we go. What are some money making ideas? Okay, this is kind of fun. Okay, first, if you're thinking there's no way I can make a new beginning for myself, I can't afford it. I've got this rent I need to pay. I've got all these things. I want you to pause and I want you to look at the resources that you have created for your life up to this point. Number one, what relationships do you have in your life today? What relationships do you have in your life today? Because those relationships might be resources for you to lean on as you get going. Maybe there's an expert in another area that you can talk to. Maybe you have a friend who has done this that you can lean on. Maybe it's a two-income household and you get to lean on that other person because you're married to them or your life partners, and you get to sit down and discuss a different avenue of living for the next 20, 30 years. Maybe you become a team and you decide together. A resource you never tapped into was what a good partnership you have with your partner. Maybe together you can develop some new ways of bringing in income and living a completely different life. Maybe it's a life where you travel together. Who knows? But what are the relationship resources that you have within your life today? Number two, what money do you have? What money do you have? If you are in a midlife situation like myself and you have spent years in the corporate world, you might have money that you can tap into, or you might have real estate that you own that you've just decided you don't want to leverage for X, Y, and Z, because we get stuck in this traditional way of looking at things, in this tunnel vision where we say things like, well, I don't want to, I want to go into debt. We're listening to a different mentality. Have you ever considered that you can own that house till you get old and gray and never truly leverage what it could have brought you? New opportunities, new investments. I'm going to dive into that a little bit before I move off this topic. But is that something for you? And why would you be scared of leveraging that? Well, maybe you don't want to. Maybe this show isn't even about where you're at. Maybe you're just content. I'm going to retire in this amount of years, and this is what I'm going to draw on my retirement account, and that's that. I don't really want. I'm not even interested in any of this other stuff. But I will tell you, and I'll talk about this a little bit before the show's up. Real estate investment and tax savings are huge, huge. A couple things the wealthy folks out there have discovered: real estate and taxes, and how to do well with them. Okay, number three, checking your resources. What's your time like? How much time do you have? What can you leverage with your time? Time can be big. Sometimes we underestimate how much time we have available to us. Can you create more time for yourself? Are there decisions that you could be making right now that you've just not made because you're scared of what that might mean, but you have the ability to make the decision? And then last, stuff you own and have. There's some resources for you. How many people have a whole closet full of stuff that you ain't done nothing with? You're a hoarder. You've been hanging on to stuff for way too long. You don't even know what you got in that house because you've been living there for so long with so much stuff. You got a garage full of items. Been there, done that. I got some. Oh, here's one. Because of where I'm at in my life and my husband's in his life, we've had family pass on that we've inherited stuff because of either at the time we felt sentimental or whatever, or, oh, is this going to be worth something someday? Yeah, it's worth something right now if you sell it. Okay. Do I want to become a storage facility for stuff? Or do I might want to leverage some of these resources so that I can bring in some income? So these are different ideas that I'm throwing out there for you today about some money-making ideas. All right. The second thing I said, so look at your resources. What do you have sitting around you already that you could potentially tap into, that you could potentially leverage? Relationships, money, time, if you've got real estate, stuff you own. All right, next, look at your skills. What do people tell you about what they like about you? What do they tell you? What do they like? What do they like? What do they say you're good at? Are you a good writer? Do people say they like the way you listen? Do people like the way you dress? Now, hang in there with me, because the next part of this, I'm going to be telling you different ways that you can leverage these things that people like about you. You're not going to believe it. It's crazy, the stuff I found, the ways you can make money. Do you find you are mechanical? Do you have an eye for detail? Do you accumulate a lot of cool stuff? Like, are you the eclectic one accumulating all that cool stuff? And lastly, after you look at your resources, you consider your skills and pay attention to what you know you're good at, but also what people tell you're good at. Number 3, this is coming from the high performance coach in me. Take a look at your energy levels. What used to feel like endless energy may not feel like that anymore. And so the body has been changing the older that you have been getting. So you want to take that into consideration. You want to take that into consideration. I had an epiphany recently as I'm on my own life journey and making different decisions, and big decisions kind of, but feel good decisions. And I thought, I've worked really hard my entire life to have great credit, to have a home, do these things. I haven't lived off the scales, multimillionaire by any means, but I have taken responsibility and care of the majority of my finances for this up to this point when I reached this shift, right? And I thought, I used to be so paranoid about my credit. Don't get me wrong, good credit's a good thing. It's such a good thing, that is what reason I can make this point. But I never leveraged my credit, yet it was a resource for me. It was something that I dedicated many years to making sure that I maintained. That credit score, make sure the bills were paid on time. I didn't dodge the debt collectors. If I had to work 2 or 3 jobs, I did it to pay whatever I took responsibility for, right? But it was like, but I never really leveraged the credit until recently, and really take advantage of that. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to be held up to that standard a lot with our lenders, but it is what it is. And so you might have good credit also that you could be leveraging, and that can really bring you some options in your life. I mean, why go through all that work if you're never going to leverage it? And when I asked you, think about your life expectancy, there's a reason I asked you that question. You can establish your whole life with all these assets, or this great credit, or these positive relationships in your life, or all this stuff in your house, and you can accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. What are you going to do with it if you die? It's all there. You never leveraged it. It just sat there, and you think maybe you're thinking you feel good about it going to your kids. Well, maybe, I don't know, but they're going to have their own journey. So that's what I'm talking about when I say look at your resources. Okay. Now we get to some of the good stuff. So I've asked you, what are you good at? Look at your resources and consider your energy levels. Okay, we'll just take those top 3 things. What are you good at? Consider your resources. Look at your energy levels. Now, what can you do with that? So now we've established, hey, I've got an idea of some things that I could put together for a side hustle. Now, what do? Number 1, you could start a blog. AI's out there now. And I'm not exactly like thrilled with this, but I do see the benefits of AI. You can write something and have AI come in there and completely reframe it for you. I was listing some items for sale on eBay yesterday. And when I went to list it, in the little corner, it says, would you like AI to rewrite this? Well, some of them I just, because I'm thinking the old self, oh, I got it. I'm looking at other ads, blah, blah, blah. And then about the last 3 items I was listing, I hit that. Oh my God. It was crazy how much better it was than what I had been writing. In fact, I kind of kicked myself, like, why didn't you hit that button 10 items ago, right? Like, oh my goodness. I'm just saying, AI can do wonders for you. So when I say start a blog and you're like, oh no, I couldn't do that, just write. There are writing platforms. There's one called Medium, another one called Substack, that you can go on and write, and you can become what's called, especially Medium. I'm not sure the details on Substack, but Medium, you can go write, and you can get paid for your writing as long as somebody, like, they can subscribe to your newsletter or your blog or whatever, and you become a partner with Medium, and you will literally make money. So there are people online, go onto Medium, they set up an account, just like you would set up your Facebook profile, whatever. They set up a profile and account, and they just start writing. And then you can become a partner with Medium. And it's like this small thing. And all of a sudden, though, you start seeing a couple dollars here trickle in, a couple dollars there trickle in. People make entire businesses just on that. And what they'll do is they'll go online and they'll say, what are the best titles for an article? And usually it's like the top 3 things to be energetic. Read this. That's what they're doing. They'll go do their research, they'll put it together, they put it to Medium, they get paid for it. There's a side hustle for you. Maybe the thing you're good at is construction, right? Oh, you could do a Medium blog newsletter on that all day. Do you know how many people want to know how to remodel stuff? Top 3 things to look for at Lowe's when you are buying plywood. I don't know. Do a blog on it, get paid for it. So there's one way. Let's see. Oh, I put a name down because I'm on Medium myself, but Paul Rose was somebody that has a really, I found they research side hustles and they've got a lot of good content out there. So on Medium, the guy's name or the woman, I can't remember, it looks like a woman picture, but the name's Paul Rose. But anyway, Paul Rose. And so once again, what Medium would do is they would pay you in their partnership programs for articles you write. That's the gist of it. Okay, sell things. You got that entire house full of stuff, or maybe you got a few items. You're somebody who's not real good at returning items, or your closet's overflowing. Sell stuff. Go online and learn how to list them. So a couple popular sites, you already heard me mention eBay, that's one. Facebook's okay. I like listing on Facebook Marketplace, but every now and then people want to hassle and hustle and lowball you sometimes on Facebook is what I have found. It may not be true, but that's what I have found for me. So I still do list on Facebook, but not as much as I used to. Posh is a great site, a great app that you can sign up for, especially for clothing items that are still in great condition, things that are going to look kind of new. Posh is a great one to start building a profile with and listing your items on there. Etsy is another great selling platform. One of the things that I had done a few years back was create a Shopify account. And Shopify is kind of interesting. It's literally, you can go online and you can research all this stuff, but Shopify is like you create a website and a platform, and then you can literally, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So let me go because I want to kind of segue to make my point. Shopify, you can make your own account and start selling stuff. And it doesn't mean that you have to do all the shipping from your house. You can literally get other businesses to create the product, and then you link it to your website and you sell it and you take a cut of everything as they do. And so you've got this little like business going, and you never once had to ship anything out from your house. All you're going out is finding out which items can I apply to my Shopify account, which ones will sell. A lot of products you see on Amazon do this, but that's Shopify. That's another way to make money. If you're good at crocheting, if you're good at creating things, oh my goodness, one of my daughter's friends in college was super skilled at making crocheted steering wheel covers, and she couldn't keep up with the demand, and she sold them on Etsy. And she would just make these steering wheel covers in her spare time, college student making side hustle money. That's what I'm talking about. And she couldn't keep up with the demand and she was listing them on Etsy. So that's how easy it really can be. And these sites will tell you how to do it. These sites will tell you how to set up an account and how to do it. Another one that I came across just yesterday, when I was doing my research, was Creative Fabrica. And this is a marketplace for creatives by creatives. So in essence, you can leverage premium resources available on Creative Fabrica to build your own passive income streams. The one I was looking at, and that Paul Rose I mentioned on Medium is how I got to Creative Fabrica, was like a t-shirt business. And so you go and they've got platforms for t-shirts, and then you can create a little design on another site, bring it over, copy it, and they do it all for you. And now you're a t-shirt business online, and it's not like you had to bring the t-shirts home and ship them out from your house. It's all done online. And all you got to do is figure out how to set that up. But that's another side hustle for you. Here's one for the writers out there. And then I'm going to see how close I am here, so I get to going and I'll lose track of my time. Okay, let's see. All right. Sorry, going back over. All right, here's one for you. Create books to sell on KDP. I had no idea what this was. So Kindle Direct Publishing. So let's say you like to create ebooks, or I'm not quite sure what all the books, I didn't get a ton of research in here, but more or less, this is that self-published thing I was talking about. But this isn't like in the whole self-development world, which it can be. I mean, don't get me wrong, but let's just say you want to write some stuff and you want to sell some stuff. And you go on and you research how to make an ebook, and you make an ebook and you upload it to KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. You make a certain percentage of all your sales. There were folks on there when I started researching that have sold like 3 million copies of ebooks and they're just making a killing on it. That's all they do. They're not going out to fancy publishers. They're literally listing their stuff on KDP. Remember what I said about AI? A lot is possible today. So, or Grammarly, or all these different softwares and sites that can help you edit what you write. Just saying, that's a passive income for you. Here's a cool one. Be a virtual friend. Yep. Friend PC, Rent a Friend, and Papa are a part of this new trend. Now, keep it clean. I don't think we're looking for that type of friend with what I'm talking about. But literally, people just want a friend to talk to. I don't know if that's, I guess, depending on how you look at it, it's really sad and pitiful on one side, but on the other side, welcome to the world of you no longer have to experience loneliness, but you can get paid for literally being somebody's friend. Might sound a little cheesy, but a lot of people might just be looking for an encouraging word. They might be looking for just that, 2-3 sentence of whatever, talking. You can get paid for that. And those are the things, those are the places that'll pay you. Friend PC, Rent a Friend, and Papa. That's all I got. And the Papa one was the most popular one. I would probably just type in Google Papa, Rent a Friend, or virtual friend, and see what I get. You can get paid for that. Yeah, just right to your bank account. So come on, you at least got that skill set, right? Be a friend. Okay. And then last, I'm going to talk about this, and then my show's going to wrap up. I am a huge advocate of real estate investment, huge advocate. And that may sound like a big deal depending on what state you live in. I live in Washington State, and trust me, it would be super expensive to be an investor here in Washington State, at least if you're kind of coming from no experience with it, unless you've got the cash flow and the resources because you've established it over 25 years of working corporate, right? But you're wondering, how do I get into that? So I personally invest out of state, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done, my husband and I. And I would say for a passive income and for learning about entities and protecting yourself and different tax write-offs that you can do, real estate investment has been an absolute really cool thing. Now, someone like me who comes from a collection background and contract background and all of that, I'm super comfortable with this. I love helping tenants. I love giving them a safe, lovely place to live. So if that is something that you're ever interested in, I would highly recommend doing some research on that. So that's been a nice resource for us too. So, and I like it. So whatever it is that you want to do for your midlife side hustle is up to you. But there are opportunities involved. There's a mental game involved, probably a little bit, that you got to overcome, but there's also strategies, and there's different ways that you can bring in money that'll help you feel fulfilled on these next 10, 20, 30 years of your life. If I can be of any service to you from a coaching perspective to help you get there with your side hustle, or just help you get there to uncover some things about yourself, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm at my website at susandenee.com. You can shoot me an email. There's different coaching packages on there. At least 2 different coaching packages you can choose from. And then I would have a free consultation with you to decide on, one, is this a good fit? Is this anything that you want to do? And go over pricing and all of that. All right, folks, that's what I got today for the Side Hustle Midlife Crisis. Like I said, if you got questions, email me. Otherwise, have a great evening, and I will see you next week. That's a wrap. You have been listening to Know You're Crazy.
Crazy.
And my name is Susan Denee. We are identifying, understanding, and treating your crazy one episode at a time. Tune in to transformationtalkradio.com. To connect with me or Growth Spurt Your Life, please visit susandenee.com. That's Susan Denee, DENEE.com.